They're the in crowd, we're the other ones. It's a different kind of cloth that we're cut from. We let our colors show where the numbers ain't. We're the paint where there ain't supposed to be paint. That's who we are. That's how we roll. The outsiders. The outsiders.
I will get high and I never get stained when we stand up right on in the pouring rain. When a junkyard dog with an alley cat, keep the wind in the front and the hell out of back. That's who we are. I'm talking walk that walk wide open rock. That's how we roll. Back to the wall, a band of brothers together along the outsiders. We're the riders, we're the ones burning rubber up our tires. Yeah, we're the fighters, they all nighters. So fire 'em up and get a little higher. The outsiders. The outsiders. You're gonna know who we are.
Milwaukee Mile is the oldest operating racetrack in the world, and it has played host to many different racing series. But tonight, it will play a big part in determining who moves on in the Elite Cup Series playoffs. The round of 12 ends here. This is the Milwaukee 400. Hello again, everybody. I'm Colin Denton with RVN. Welcome to the 22nd round of the Elite Cup Series and the final race of the round of 12 in these playoffs, which are even more intense than they were in their first cutoff race at NASCAR. 4th and 11th place are separated by just 8 points, leaving almost no one feeling safe about where they are right now. John Arndt, William Brock, Jake Baskinger, they have a pretty safe margin, but no one is guaranteed a spot into this next round yet. If we get a victor out of those 12 drivers, they are guaranteed into the next round. A good finish is going to help some of those drivers, but a bad finish could absolutely crush some people here tonight at Milwaukee Mile, making this race absolutely crucial. They will have to navigate this tricky mile track and determine who will be moving on to keep themselves in contention for a championship. From our previous stop in Ontario, California, we head up to the Milwaukee metropolitan area, technically in West Allis, Wisconsin. That's where we'll find the Milwaukee Mile, the world's oldest active racing facility, opened in 1903, was paved in the 1950s to the track we know today, and has played host to NASCAR's Xfinity and Truck Series, the ARCA Series, and IndyCar, and is the current host to the Wisconsin State Fair. We take a lap around the track with our Toyota test car, and these drivers are definitely going to want to keep it down on the inside line. We saw in the modified races, drivers were overdriving, sliding up the racetrack, and clearly losing some time as drivers seem to pass constantly. It's going to be a bit of an affair trying to get down to the bottom. It could turn into a single file affair, but if some drivers get a little aggressive, we could see some too-wide racing. And if they get a little bit more dicey, it could turn into some accidents. Come around the start-finish line and you'll finish out this lap within 30 seconds. The Amateur Cup Series drivers that just finished up their race trying to qualify for this event, but it became chaotic very quickly as Shane Borland makes contact with Dwayne Calloway, turns both of them into the wall, and that puts Calloway out of the event. And then there's more trouble right away with Donnie Moore, Connor Mays, Austin Rogers. Jacob Rose takes a little bit of contact. But just in the first turn, already chaos for some of those drivers up front. Once we got into a little bit of racing, we got a really dicey move right there. Jacob Rose pushing his way to the front, and then Craig Martin making a move to the inside of Robert Harrison to try and get into his home race, and he's going to be successful. Kyle Law would be the first one to cross the line, as the rest of the field was able to take the checkered flag. And here's who will also be a part of the event: Chris Harley, Eric Van Arsdale, John Gilbert, Jacob Rose, who pushed his way to the front, and Craig Martin able to make the move on Robert Harrison to get that final spot. And Dwayne Calloway, unfortunately, goes behind the wall along with Donnie Moore, both involved in that first lap crash. Our hot seat driver for tonight will be John Arndt. A couple of top 10s these past 2 races at Simtel Park in Ontario. That's doing him well in these point standings, trying to advance to the round of 8. And let's take a look at those standings as we hit the final race of the round of 12. John Art in the best position at the moment. He has plenty of wiggle room, but he also wants to make sure he qualifies for the next round. Meanwhile, at the cut line, 3 drivers tied for 5 points ahead of Stuart Gradden. Realistically, there's 8 drivers right there in such a narrow margin of each other, and only so many of them are going to get spots into the next round. Time to find out who's going to qualify for the round of 8. Let's head trackside for the command.
Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Here to give the command to start the engines, please welcome the star of A Bad Mom's Christmas and the upcoming Netflix crime fantasy bright, Jay Hernandez.
Drivers, start your engine!
Okay, Craig, when you're ready. Oh, shit, got me. Here you win.
This crowd is excited to see these Elite Cup Series drivers take to the track. We've got 60 laps on hand, and it's time to take a look at our starting grid. Starting on pole for the first time in his career, it's Eric Monaco alongside the chaser, Jack Porkins, 6 points below the cut line. He's got 2 top 10s on the mile tracks. Another chaser 6 points below the cut line inside of row 2 is NASCAR Fan 19. He was the Season 1 winner at Spring Creek. Zachary Fitzwater Sr. has finished outside the top 30 in his last 5 races. Gets a good qualifying run here. Row 3, Dominic Carranza finished well at our last mile track of NASCAR, finished 5th, and Gerard Irwan got a 6th place run at Ontario. Inside row 4, Allison Rain, who was knocked out last round, 0 top 20s in the last 10 races, and Eli Bright, 15th, is his best finish at a track 1 mile or less. 2 chasers 5 points above the cut line in row 5, David Davidson and Bruno De Barros, the latter of whom has top 10s in both of his mile starts. Row 6, we've got Rambo, who finished 4th at Toronto Lakeshore, one of our mile tracks, and Ryan Maiden, who hasn't had a top 30 finish in his last 6 races. Chaser Jake Baskinger in row 7, 5 straight finishes of 16th or better, and Brad Stover has 3 straight finishes of the same mark, and he was the runner-up at our last mile track of NASCAR. Inside of row 8 is the driver most in danger of elimination right now, Amethyst Ashley, 17 points behind the cut line, and Caleb Campbell, the runner-up at Ontario. In row 9, we've got Mitchell Mark, who has the worst average of all full-timers on mile tracks, hoping to improve that mark tonight, and Julio Caesar, who has 1 top 10 on the mile or shorter tracks. Row 10, we've got Nick Smith. His best finish on a mile track is 19th. That came at Spring Creek in Season 1. And Cody Hagan, who has a pair of top 5s at short tracks. Inside of row 11, Aiden Shepard, coming off back-to-back top 10s, and Rampage, who's on the opposite end, 8 straight finishes without a top 20. In row 12, the Wisconsin native Craig Martin. The last time we were in his state, he came 5th at Simtel Park, and Noah Kars got a runner-up finish at Hillside in Season 1. Our most recent winner is on the inside of row 13. Noah Ponser got the victory at Ontario, and Jacob Rose making his second career Elite Cup Series race. He finished 5th in his debut at Bump Drafted. Dale Jr. Fan 8883 on the inside of row 14. His best finish at a mile track is 14th at Toronto Lakeshore. And chaser Adam Mundinger finished 5th at Ontario. He has a 7-point advantage coming in. In row 15, the other JR finished 6th at Toronto Lakeshore, and Kyle Wall looking for his first top 20 in the Elite Cup Series. He has 6 starts to date. 2 veterans in row 16, Eric Van Arsdale yet to earn an Elite Cup Series top 10 on a shorter track, and John Arndt inside the chase, back-to-back top 10s and leading the points. The runner-up in points, William Brock, starts on the inside of row 17, 22 ahead of the cut line, and Chris Harley no longer a part of the Amateur Cup Series chase, making his 16th start, though, in the Elite Cup Series. A couple more veterans in row 18, Reese Butcher finished 4th at Ontario after his Simtel Park win, and Stephen Willey, who came 3rd at NASCAR. Row 19, we've got Philip Fry, who finished 7th at Ontario. He is one of the drivers 5 points ahead of the cut line, and Jonathan Rains, 2 top 10s on mile tracks. The most recent winner at a mile track, Jack Krause, is on the inside of row 20 after winning at NASCAR, and Stuart Gradden alongside him, the first car below the cut line, 5 points behind. He has a lot of ground to make up. And in the final row, John Gilbert, who qualified for all 3 of the Elite Cup Series races at mile tracks this season, and Tyler Markell, who won at Toronto Lakeshore. Now into our 22nd race of the Elite Cup Series season, and we still have yet to have a repeat pole sitter. Eric Monaco, the 22nd to sit on the pole this season, and he'll be one of those eligible to qualify for next season's Clash event. And going to see if he can go for that first career victory that he's looking for. And if you want the onboard streams of the 12 remaining chase drivers, head on over to the NFRN channel where you can get their onboards throughout the race. But it's now time to go racing. 60 laps here at Milwaukee Mile. Green flag is out. Eric Monaco gets off to a great jump, and beyond him, it's pretty much 2x2. NASCAR Fan 19 is going to slide into the second position, overtaking Jack Porkins. And the 04 is going to have a difficult time getting down to the inside. Everyone bunched up. Stuart Gradden bringing up the rear. He's now 30 points below the cut line. You can see how the points have shuffled with those starting positions and how they've run in the early laps. Right now it's Julio Caesar 10 points ahead of Adam Mundinger. And the gap widens a little bit with that lap. On board Amethyst Ashley, now 12 points behind. She came in here with the most risk and trying to fight her way up for some positions. There's enough to be gained to get a spot into the round of 8. And right now, she's trying to overtake her teammate, Bruno De Barros, on the inside. We got a 3-wide situation here. Gerard Aron in his own lane. Rambo looking to the inside. That's Zachary Fitzwater Sr. on the outside. Driver of the 9 car was looking for a good finish and early laps. He's getting trapped on the outside. Still 3 wide coming off the corner. No one has the clear advantage. And they're realistically holding up this group. Davidson's trapped on the outside, but he might have the ability to get down inside, given the gap that just formed right there. There's still 3 wide there with Rain now in the middle. You can see Davidson dives to the inside, so he's able to get that spot. Now Amethyst Ashley working a 3-wide situation. Got the runner-up in the middle race of the round of 16 at Toronto Lakeshore. Gave her enough to qualify for this round, but it's been abysmal since then. Hasn't finished inside the top 20 since. Looks like she's going to be able to clear both Rain and Fitzwater Sr., the teammates, as Monaco continues to hold a massive lead over NASCAR Fan 19, and then it's another gap back to Dominic Carranza. It's going well for Monaco so far, and he's going to hope that this thing stays green. Comes into this race 26th in points with only 2 top 10s, and both of them came within the first 8 races of the season. The last one being at 8 Bowl. So multiple races without getting the top 10. He's hoping that he's going to do even better than that. Go for his first career victory in the Elite Cup Series. Still plenty packed back here. But unlike the Amateur Cup Series, these drivers have kept it all straight. We got a couple cautions early on in the Amateur Cup Series event, including one on lap 2. So far, we're about to complete 7 laps, and we still haven't had an accident, even though there's plenty of side-by-side racing back here. Now it's just a matter of can anyone go up and challenge Monaco. Looking at the rear of the field now, and you can see John Arndt has fallen to the very back of the field, but he is still 12 points ahead of the cut line. Meanwhile, Adam Mundinger is also stuck on that outside. You can see his results in this round. 32nd at Simtel, 5th at Ontario. But as he runs, that's not going to be good enough, as the rest of these drivers have managed to put up results and have the current track position to advance. He still has to make up at least 12 spots. It's going to be tough for him, but I was mentioning that Arndt is at the rear of the field, and he still is 10 points above the cut line. So that kind of sets the benchmark of where you have to be able to pass him, who had such a great first 2 races of this round. Back near the front, NASCAR Fan 19 obviously has the best track position at the moment, but Jack Porkins trying to work on Eli Bright. Davidson's up there as well. Where Porkins runs, that pushes him in the safe contention. 14 points above the cut line. Davidson 19 points above. Brad Stover now stuck 3 wide on the outside. Caesar underneath him. And he's done really well down this stretch, which really came at the wrong time because his performance turned off just before the chase. When it looked like he was almost a sure lock to make it in, all of his finishes went away. But now that he's entered the playoffs, he's had 4 top 10s in these first 5 races, including a runner-up at Ontario, and a little bit of contact there with Cody Hagan, but Stuart Gratton really crowding that inside line. Oh, and some contact there with Rampage. Cars sliding all over the place, and there goes William Brock into the wall, along with Noah Cars and Stephen Woolley, and more contact. Adam Mundinger and John Arndt gets sideswiped. 3 chase drivers involved in an accident out of turn 4. There's the 97 with heavy front end damage that might take him out of this race and potentially out of the chase. William Brock, the first of those to go around, and he hit his back end hard. His front looks okay. And John Arndt also took a side swipe, I believe, from Willie. As the field packs up to get in line. Looks like the leaders ended up going around another lap. There is the 62 car. Such a tough start to the season, and finally got it going in recent races. He's going to be out of this one potentially. And the 3 car showing signs of smoke as he's heading down the pit lane. And time to see what's going to happen here. And you can see the leaders are pitting. That's about the top 4 or so. But David Davidson, the first one to stay out, and almost no one is going to follow those leaders down pit lane. Save for a few cars in the back, but it's like the first 4 drivers in line. NASCAR Fan 19, one of those drivers. And I do not believe they're inside their fuel window yet, so this is an interesting call, and they're all taking 4 tires, it looks like. And it appears they'll all pull out of the pits in the same order they came in. But that's going to be interesting to watch and see how the strategy works out, because I'm not sure if that was what they needed there. But let's take a look at how this all unfolded. And Stover was already having troubles on the outside, and then the 1 car of Rampage makes contact, and then Brock gets into the 1 car as they slide down the track. Now Willie's there on the curbing, and you can see he just has no stability, and he's going to take the 23 around with him, and Noah Cars is going to take a head-on shot to the wall. It's a difficult hit for him, and 23 of William Brock mainly hit with his back end. Might not be race-ending damage for him. We'll have to see. We take another look at it, and Car's hitting. It just barely turns to the left at the last second, so it looks like it's more right side damage than head-on damage for Noah Cars. And then what happens here to cause the second incident? Mundinger makes kind of a evasive move, gets contact with Kyle Law and Chris Harley, turns that 3 car head-on into the wall. That is probably going to take Harley out, as we saw him smoking, and that's also what's going to eliminate the 97. Stephen Woolley is going to hit Mundinger, and then that's going to lead to the side swipe with Arndt, who fortunately has a little bit of wiggle room, and with Mundinger almost certainly out at this point, those are a few positions that he is going to make sure he does not fall behind on. But that's a bad break for Mundinger. Let's take a look at William Brock's onboard here. Lucky not to get caught up at the end of that one. Now on board our hot seat driver, John Arndt. He slowed up in the grass, hoping he wasn't going to get involved, and now on board Adam Mundinger, who's going to be out in this one. 13 laps complete and under our first caution here at Milwaukee.
Everyone knows that old NASCAR legend about how drivers, go during a race. So naturally, we were curious.
Kevin, no bathroom break?
Nope, all set.
Hey, Kevin.
What's going on? Excuse me.
I mean, those fire suits are made of high-tech fabric.
What are you doing?
Nothing. Looking at the rain. You guys go on, I'll catch up.
The time is running out. If you want to be involved in the NFRN this season, this will be your last deadline to get into a race session. Deadline to sign up for race 15 of the Truck Series part-time qualifying, and the final race of the Open Modified Series will be in 2 days' time from the point of this broadcast. So follow the link down below if you want to get involved. Otherwise, you'll have to wait till next season. And just a reminder, this is open to anybody who is not currently active within the league. Coming back after our first caution of the night, and as expected, Adam Mundinger is one of the drivers that is out of this event, along with Stephen Willie and Chris Harley. So Mundinger almost certainly won't make the round of 8. He did come in above the cut line, so there's a very slim margin, but it would take a miracle at this point, given that he only entered with a 7-point gap. Now we're going to see how this strategy plays out, because we saw the first 4 drivers come to the pits, and now NASCAR Fan 19 finds himself at the bottom of the chase board since almost no one followed that group. Now it's Davidson out front, followed by Porkins, and Rambo's making a move on Baskinger for 3rd place, with Ashley trailing behind. And Ashley still 2 points out of the playoffs to advance to the round of 8. It was always going to be a difficult task for her to make it, but if she can get this spot from Baskinger and make up one more spot, hopefully get someone else to lose a spot, still has a chance to make it in. But Davidson not pulling out to the lead like Monaco had early on. Porkins staying right on his tail. Let's take a look at all the chase drivers in the field right now. Davidson's really turned it on since he got that victory at San Joltis. Went from a 26th place average finish to a 16th place ever since that victory. Now he's hoping that he can hold off Porkins and go for career win number 2. The 04 staying right in his tracks on the inside line. And he's done very well at these mile tracks. He has finishes of 3rd and 9th. 3rd coming at Toronto Lakeshore. Trying to see if he can go for his 2nd win as well. He got the victory at Nazareth, the last race of the regular season. Right now, both of these drivers safe within the cut line. Obviously, Davidson leading puts him at the top, but Porkins has a 14-point gap now. As Ashley has made her way around Baskinger and now is 1 point ahead of Caesar. We saw a really confusing pit strategy from Ashley. It came off the back of Baskinger having the issues at the restart because of damage he sustained on pit lane. And Ashley was the one that got marked for passing on the inside at Ontario. That ended up putting her just on the tail end of the lead lap. And just when they had a chance at redemption, the team didn't pit properly under the yellow, brought her in under green, and forced her a lap down, which gave her a bad finish. And now she's having to fight for every point that she can get. Doing a good job right now, just a matter of can she hang on to it. We go back to her teammate, Bruno De Barros, one of the 3 drivers that got top 10s in both of the first 2 mile tracks. Obviously, with what we just mentioned, Porkins being one of the other ones, but you probably wouldn't guess the 3rd. That would be Jonathan Rains, who got top 10s in the first 2 mile tracks that we had in round 1 of this chase. But the Barros currently has a 10-point advantage to the cut line, and Philip Fry 4 points ahead. As now it's kind of a three-way tie at the cut line. William Brock now finds himself battling for position. Fry was able to break a streak without a top 10 at Ontario, and he makes a really good move there. He was on the outside line, moves inside of the 76 to make sure he stops the bleeding. He's only 3 points ahead at the cut line right now, and Stuart Gratton is 4 points below, and he's looking to the inside of Markel, and he's going to force the issue, and should be able to pull ahead of him at least eventually. Gratton showed a lot of potential at the start of the season, but hasn't had the best stretch ever since his home race at Calder Park. That was the site of his last top 10. He's had top 20s in about half of the events since then, but obviously you need to be running up front more consistently if you want to make it to the Championship 4, and at the very least get out of this round. We're looking back now at this group that had pitted, and it looks like NASCAR Fan 19 got in front of Eric Monaco, and they're both trying to get around Julio Caesar, who's kind of holding up this group. There's a bit of a gap in between. But the 64 car is reinserting himself into the conversation. He is under 10 points away from the cut line now. And while he hasn't gotten any victories, he's been doing solidly. 6 top 20s in the last 8 races. I have to imagine that those top 4 are really gambling on a strategy that allows them to go a little bit longer. They did knock out about 15 laps of competition there in that first green flag stint. So they might be hoping that they have the ability to go longer if the green flag pit cycle happens. As we fade back to the rear of the field, where we see William Brock still running decently despite his rear end damage, but only has a 1-point gap to the cut line, and really hoping that he can make up some positions, trying to go to the inside of John Arndt, who still has a 13-point advantage despite being at the rear. That was not an accident that Brock could afford, but didn't have a lot of room to go anywhere. Hoping that it's not going to cost him a spot in the next round. Meanwhile, John Arndt, one of our original Championship 4, hoping that his day will continue to improve. We are approaching the halfway point of the race. Stringing out near the front of the field and near the back. Still a lot of racing to be seen, and we've got green flag pit cycle starting right here. Ryan Maiden, Mitchell Mark, Campbell. I see Fry, one of the first of the chasers to come in. And contact at the end of the pit lane. It's John Arndt into the barrier. And he is smashed straight into the end of the wall with the water barrels. Philip Fry going to get his service, but that might mess up this entire group. As Davidson comes to the line, pit lane is closed. Boy, that is not a mistake you see John Arndt make too often. Usually a very consistent driver, and now finds himself at the end of pit lane with a destroyed race car that's going to take him out of this one. So now his own fate's no longer in his hands. He's just got to hope that the collective of these drivers still on track can't overtake him. But now everyone that did not come down is going to get their service here, including all of the leaders. And I'm looking to the back, and I do see the drivers that tried to go for that strategy pitting first, and they're going to come in with these drivers. Everyone that's still on track was on pit lane at the time of the caution, and they're going to be stuck at the tail end of the lead lap. We're looking at 3 chasers right here. Davidson pulls away. Will he come out with the lead still? And it looks like he will. I think Porkins is just going to nab second once again. Take a look at the race off pit lane. And actually, they're going to mark Porkins behind Rambo. So that gives Davidson a little bit of leeway as Ashley stays put in the 4th position. Take a quick look at what happened here. And Arndt is just way too wide to commit to pit lane. It's almost like he made a last-second commitment, seeing that people were coming in, and tried to join them and just makes a serious mistake. And that's going to bring out our second caution and really flip everybody's strategy. So we're right on board with him. We're under caution number 2 here at Milwaukee.
Nice job, Martin. Looking good. Oh, it's the funny car guy.
Hey, you got Napa know-how too, huh?
Yep. Well, Martin does go 200 miles an hour.
Ron breaks 300 in 4 seconds.
Yeah, in a straight line. That's real hard.
You drive in a circle.
You don't even steer.
Look at me.
Hey, you
I
two.
turn left.
Don't make me go get my can.
Your can's old.
Quiet! Matlock's on!
That's Daryl's can.
Boogity, boogity!
Now past the halfway point of the Elite Cup Series round of 12 finale here at Milwaukee Mile, and John Arndt has put himself out of the race by driving into the end of the pit lane wall. And this field has really been flipped over. Several cars in front of our actual leader, which is not Davidson. It is Ryan Maiden, who after being able to cross the start-finish line, got his lap, got the wave around the pace car, and is now leading this event. So several cars trying to make sure that they are able to stay on the lead lap, hoping that a caution comes out quickly. And it looks like the 44, who has damage, is holding up this entire field at the front. And behind him, there's a slide, and it's the leader, Ryan Maiden. Davidson involved. Brock also goes around. Back of the field nearly comes to a complete stop, but the leader, Ryan Maiden, with heavy damage. The former chase driver looked like he caught the luckiest of breaks, and he gets collected in this one, and it seemed to precipitate behind the slow car of Noah Cars. Oh, and there's problems in the backstretch involving Rambo and Jack Porkins, maybe Bruno De Barros, and it looks like the 12 cars got damage. Just a reminder, Rambo is on probation for the remainder of the season because of the actions at Texas World that saw De Barros' teammate Ashley get turned out of the pits. It was the second offense. We'll have to look at the replay to determine what exactly happened there, but it looks like Davidson actually got away. Brad Stover also having some damage. See the wheel mark on his left side. Let's dissect this one. So this is in turns 1 and 2, and you can see the 44 holding this inside line up, and Stover drives into the back of Jacob Rose, sends him sideways. Those cars on the outside getting a really good break there. But the 44 is just too slow to operate. As you can see, the 95 get to his bumper and push him aside, and it looks like Jack Krause gets into the 55, and William Brock kind of runs in there as well, and the 99 and 11 are the drivers on the outside. And Maiden's just going to go right into the back of the 55, and Davidson really gets a good break there. Even though he does have contact, he just kind of pushes the 23 aside and slides away. Those other drivers near the front take evasive action, and that allows the 11 to maintain the lead. So Davidson caught a really lucky break there, as we once again see the 95 push the 44 away. And it just stacks up from there. And Maiden just has nowhere to go. And you can see there is some damage to that 11 car. He does make pretty good contact with the 23 car. Just a matter of how will it affect his performance throughout the back half of this race. Unfortunately for the 99 car, it looks like his day might be done. Let's watch on board William Brock. And on board Davidson. That situation is also going to put a lot of cars back on the lead lap who had gone a lap down. And now looking at what happened here, and I'm not sure what to say about this. It is the 4 and the 04 getting together at the start, and the 12 car drives into it. But they were 3 wide. At that point, they should know where they're going, but the field is kind of slowing up. Just not sure whether or not to call that intentional, and it is going to come down to intent, whether or not the league does something about that incident. But that'll be determined after the race, so we're going to head back to green flag. Maiden is out of the event. Everyone else stays on. Davidson's still in the lead. It looks like Jack Krause, Stover, and Brock all still a lap down. And I believe in that Noah Cars ends up getting his lap back as a result of being on the tail end of the lead lap, so he is now truly at the back of the field. Now we got 5 drivers up in this top 9. Porkins and DeBarros, NASCAR Fan 19, and Baskinger, who I think just gave a little bump to the 64. Moves him aside to get to the inside line. Well, the 84 is safely inside the chase at the moment, and NASCAR Fan 19 also inside. I tell you what, though, that 34 of Jack Krause is not going fast, and he is now kind of holding up the line. We thought the 44 was going to be the culprit, but now you can see that inside line really stacked up. And contact! Another slide going into turn 1. Look at them, they're basically 5 wide. And Van Arsdale not getting off of Baskinger, and they go into the wall. And the stack-up continues down the backstretch. Well, 9 car slows up there, and we got a spin in the back. Caleb Campbell with some heavy front-end damage, and Noah Ponser, who won our last race at Ontario. Trouble on the front stretch. And Caesar's involved. Looks like Graddon's right there. Oh no, Philip Fry. He ran into that super late. And he is not in a safe spot, as Ponser just went up and ran into the back of Rose. Fitzwater Sr. We had seen the 9 car kind of slow up in turn 3 and 4. I'm not sure if that led to what happened here, as Jonathan Rains also smoking and drives ahead of the 9. He was really the first car we saw on that front stretch incident. What brought out the caution was Caleb Campbell and Noah Ponser crashing in the back. Potentially had something to do with that stack up that we saw going out of turn 2. And here's what kind of all started it. And there's so much to look at here. It looks like the 64 turned expecting that Brock was going to start his corner, but he kind of went straight, trying to avoid the 34 and the 55, who are kind of slow right there. And look at how wide they are. And Baskinger and Van Arsdale also made contact, but then the 27 just never gets separated from him as he tries to make the corner. He continues making contact with the 84, and that sends them both into the wall. Now we're going to have to find out what kind of damage is done to the 84 car of Baskinger. And then further in the back, it looks like that stack-up continues. And Philip Fry is going to make contact with the 92 car of Poncer, and inevitably he's going to spin up into that 41 of Campbell on the outside line. Oh, Mitchell Mark barely got away with that one, but unfortunate for Campbell. Just nowhere to go as Fry ends up turning Poncer, kind of as a result of that stack up on the inside line. So I believe Campbell probably won't be able to continue. Poncer might be able to, but at a slower rate. And then what happens here? Okay, so it's not the 9 being slow. It's Markel getting into Reigns, turning him right into the wall on the inside. And the 48 gets away with that one. And then 77 is going to slide right into the path of the 9 with Caesar just behind him. And that's going to put Caesar into the wall along with Monaco, the pole sitter, who is really hoping for a good result here. So Caesar certainly slid. Trying to see if Gradden had any involvement here. He might have made a little contact. We're going to have to observe the damage under this caution period. And then Fry just kind of flies in here unnecessarily and is going to make more contact there with Reigns, which is going to hurt his performance. He did not need that when he needs every point possible in this race. Let's look at the onboards first with Fry. He had a lot of speed going into that corner. And we're going to continue to follow this one as he goes onto the front stretch into the path of the Saxton. Man, I guess he wanted to beat the 44 back to the line, but at what cost? And onboard Caesar under our 4th caution of the night here at Milwaukee Mile.
Dude, something is wrong. Kevin always loves his perfectly toasted full throttle ham.
Kevin! Kevin! Say something! Anything! Ingredients! Ham! Pepper jack! Bacon! Anything! Kevin!
Just calm down. Just maybe all he needs is just another full throttle ham.
Here, Kevin, have my full throttle ham.
Quick! Somebody call Subway. We need more full throttle ham.
That's not gonna work, fellas. The full throttle ham is only available in the Subway vault.
He's right. We need the Subway hat for more full throttle ham.
Kevin Harvick's full throttle ham. Only in the Subway vault.
Eat the sandwich!
Back at Milwaukee Mile. Coming off our 4th caution that sees another 3 drivers exit the race. Caleb Campbell, Zachary Fitzwater Sr., and Jonathan Reigns. Race started out clean compared to the Amateur Cup Series that saw 2 cautions in the first 10 laps, and ever since then, it's been a little bit chaotic, especially after John Arndt ran into the wall during the green flag pit stop. Now we see Davidson once again pulling away with the lead, and the hometown favorite, Craig Martin, has found his way up to 2nd place, as that inside line continues to be held up by Jet Kraus and potentially Brad Stover. Look at that gap that Davidson has already. And he's got a lot more experience in these cars than Martin does, that already puts him at an advantage. Ooh, and Eli Bright is going down to the pits. He's got a stop-and-go penalty. And while that usually ends up being enforced at the restart for passing inside before the start-finish line, it sounds like he lined up out of place. That's the word we're getting for him in making that stop, and unfortunately it might send him a lap down. As look at the 3-wide racing we got going on back here. The slow cars once again causing havoc, and cars making contact, and one into the wall. Aiden Shepard goes around. And Julio Caesar runs right into it along with Stuart Gradden. And Amethyst Ashley was also up against the wall, right behind that entire thing. And these chasers are just struggling to get away from these accidents, especially the ones near the back of the field and behind these lapped cars. As that time it looked like Caesar took a pretty sizable shot into one of the cars spinning around. And his car is plenty beat up. We're seeing there two of the combatants, Reese Butcher, Aiden Shepard, as they drive around. But look at the damage to the Zero of Caesar. His hood buckled up. Oh, and he just took another hit right there as he checks up. The 44 ran into the back of him. Let's look what happened here. 3 wide situation. 90 car turns left just a bit and gets into the 18, and then that results in running into the 7 who's on the outside, and Ashley gets squeezed in the midst of that. So she ends up scraping along the wall. But then you see back here Caesar and Graddon driving into the smoke screen as the 90 car finally goes around, and Caesar's going to drive right into him. Let's take a look at it from this angle. Up front. There you can see the start of this one, as Smith ends up going into the outside wall and drives away as the 7 finally goes around off the front of the 90. And then the 90 spins off the 57, and then Caesar just driving straight into it, runs right into the right side of Butcher, and Graddon also has nowhere to go. And Kyle Law takes evasive action there. He's actually going to scrape the wall a little bit. Riding on board Ashley. And boy, she continues to scrape the wall as she goes around. You can see the 90 really unstable in the middle of that 3 wide situation. That is a pretty good lick that the 0 takes, and the 29 is able to get around as a result. Right on board Graddon as we head to commercial break. Caution number 5 here at Milwaukee. We'll be back for the finish after this.
You know why I like racing in the NASCAR Busch Series? It's competition in its purest form. I'm not racing for the money. I'm racing to be racing. I've been to victory lane a few times. Been there, done that. Let me tell you, it's no place to rest on your laurels. Every time I get behind the wheel, I have to prove myself all over again.
That's why I like racing the NASCAR Busch Series.
7 laps to go in the round of 12 for the Elite Cup Series playoffs. David Davidson in the lead at the end of caution number 5. With 7 laps to go, all of the lapped cars line up where they cross the start-finish line, so none of the slow cars are up front. Might have a few people that have to navigate them, but we're looking at the battle for the final playoff position, and it's coming down to Caesar and Graddon, neither of whom came down for a pit stop to repair damage. Right now, Caesar's at the end of this pack, not really being challenged from behind, so it's going to kind of be up to Graddon to gain those spots. At the moment, Mundinger, who is out of the race, at the bottom of the grid. Ashley, who has the damage, tied with him down there, and Philip Fry, who's had contact, also out. We see Ashley in the middle of this group right here, as Reese Butcher came down to pit lane. He had a stop-and-go penalty, and that was for passing the 78 on the inside on the restart. Brad Stover holding up that outside line. Van Arsdale and Rampage not going to be happy. That allows Graden and Ashley underneath, but it's also going to allow Caesar eventually. So it's not really a net gain for Graden. But at the moment, that gap is 1 point with coming to 4 laps to go. Davidson once again building a decent gap over Craig Martin, but Rambo's challenging for the second position. You can see they're going underneath Jack Krause now on the outside line. And it does not look like Ashley's going to advance at this rate. Just too many points to make up. So it's going to be a premature exit for the driver that won at Pixcliff earlier this season. And now Caesar's encountering a little bit of competition. His car is damaged now. That one car of Rampage who got held up by Stover is now making the move to the inside. That's a point that goes in Graden's favor. We move to the triple box as we wait to see the results of this one, following Caesar and Graden separately on the right. Two laps to go at the line. Still a 2-point advantage for Caesar. Graden's going to have to pass 2 cars. The 0 is underneath the 34 of Krause right now. That is not for position. Graden runs the inside line going down into turn 3. Ashley leaves the door open, but Graden unable to capitalize. White flag is out. Next flag will end the race. Mitchell Mark appears to have run out of fuel as he comes down to the pits. And it is smooth sailing for David Davidson out front. He didn't have to win this race to make it to the next round of the chase, but a victory is a victory nonetheless. Coming around the final corners, it's going to be win number 2 for David Davidson in his rookie season here in Milwaukee. And coming around the final corner, Graden makes a move on Ashley. That's going to get him 1 point, but it's not going to be enough. Julio Caesar will advance to the round of 8 by 1 point over Stuart Graden. The racing here tonight did not disappoint, nor did the drama, as Davidson heads back to victory lane, and Caesar with a battle-scarred race car. Hood buckled in, tire mark on the left. He is able to move on to the next round, and Stuart Graden, one of the early season favorites, started with 4 straight top 10s, 3 straight top 5s, and a victory, will exit in the round of 12. What an upset. So we take a look at the final results with Davidson out in front, and how about the Wisconsin native Craig Martin? 2 top 5s in the 2 Wisconsin races in the Elite Cup Series. Really felt the home field advantage here. Rambo comes home in the 3rd position. We'll see if the league takes any action with regards to what happened under caution. As you can see, the other 2 drivers that were involved, Jack Porkins and Bruno De Barros, still came home with top 10 days and advanced to the next round. So perhaps they'll be able to look past that. John Gilbert also coming home with a top 5 day. That's his 2nd top 5 after he finished runner-up in his debut at Van Zandt. Gerard Irwan gets back-to-back 6th place finishes. And how about Allison Rain? Came into this race with 10 finishes straight outside the top 20. Able to finish in the 8th position. That's her best finish since her win at Calder Park. Jake Baskinger safely advanced, the other JR rounding out the top 10, and NASCAR Fan 19 comes home in the 11th spot. We'll also see him in the round of 8 for the 2nd straight season. Unfortunately, 18th was not good enough for Stuart Graden by 1 point. Able to make the move on Amethyst Ashley, who also did not advance. A real disappointment for Eric Monaco, who had the pole, and he was hoping that that strategy was going to work out, pitting on that first caution. Unfortunately, could not advance any higher than 16th. Caesar ended up in the 24th position, which was good enough to put him into the next round. Philip Fry also going home after this one, finishing 28th. And we'll also see William Brock, who had to battle some adversity. He ends up in the 32nd position, but ultimately had enough points coming into this race that he will be a part of the round of 8. And we also see Stover and Krause, who really caused some chaos for the drivers in this one. They finished the lap down at the end of the field that were able to reach the end of the race. Campbell, Fitzwater, Rains, Maiden, Arndt, who will make it to the round of 8, Mundinger, who will not, as well as Stephen Willie and Chris Harley, all dropping out of this event. This is what the final standings look like coming out of this round. Davidson with the win, Baskinger 30 points ahead at the end of it, and of course the narrow margin of Caesar over Gradden. Gradden was the driver that came into this race just below the cut line, and he's going to stay there, albeit by the narrowest of margins. Meanwhile, Jack Porkins and NASCAR Fan 19 with their very solid results were able to jump out of purgatory and make the round of 8. Now, if we remove those drivers that got eliminated and compare them to those that were already eliminated, Reese Butcher now propels himself up to 9th place after winning at Simtel Park. All of the positions up to 5th position among those chasers that do not qualify for the championship are up for grabs, and Butcher putting himself in nice position here. Stover was the one placed in 17th at the start of the race, but after his finish at the back of the grid, Shepard, who was also involved in the crash, is able to jump up there by a 7-point margin. Jack Krause also losing some points there. And unfortunately, Stephen Willie's exit in the first caution of the day will not help him in trying to keep up with the 36 full-timers, despite the fact that Dwayne Calloway did not qualify for the event. Here's what the team standings look like now. Despite Ashley's exit from the playoffs, AMI Incorporated does slightly gap Ramco Motorsports just a little bit more. And in the Rookie of the Year standings, Jake Baskinger and Jack Porkins were able to jump forward with their top 10 finishes. And they're going to try to put up a challenge on Brad Stover and Jack Krause, who have been riding a lot of top 10s throughout the season. But those Chase drivers definitely have a case to be made for winning Rookie of the Year late in the season. So that is going to do it from here at Milwaukee Mile. It was action-packed, it was racy, it was a little bit controversial, but in the end, a Chase driver comes out with the victory, and we have our round of 8 set. Myrtle Beach will be the next track on the schedule, and the short track tempers are sure to flare there. We appreciate you watching tonight's broadcast for NFRN and RVN. My name is Colin Denton, and we hope to see you next time.